Hi everyone, welcome back to The Mystic in the Woods. I'm Kate, and I am actually filming this intro after I've already filmed the unboxing of this deck, Shadow of Darkness Oracle cards, because it turned into not just an unboxing of this, but a rambly chat about this deck, as well as other decks, and Wounded Darkness versus Wounded Light, and all sorts of things like that. So let's get into it. So like I said, this is very impromptu, and we're going to start by unboxing this deck, because I purchased this specifically for shadow work. Now, I already took the plastic off, but I haven't actually opened it. I purchased this specifically for shadow work because while this artwork is not my style necessarily, just personally, the keywords and phrases on the cards, on the imagery that I saw online, really made me think of shadow work, and very specifically really getting underneath of an issue. So when we're doing shadow work, the point is to get into the unconscious root of whatever's going on in our lives. By definition, the stuff in your shadow is unknown to you. And it tends to be harder topics. It's put there for a reason. So while the shadow is not just composed of bad or dark things, as I've talked about before, it is composed of also your most authentic pieces and your magic and your authenticity. But you put those things there in your shadow because of something hard. So shadow work has hard moments, and because we're dealing with hard stuff. And so what we need if we're going to be using decks, especially oracle decks, is we need a deck that can really help us point towards the root of something, to help us excavate layers and to help us look at the things that are like more challenging, right? So I was really intrigued by this deck when I saw it online. So this is, again, Shadow of Darkness by Syrian Shadow. I do not have their other deck. That one, I just think I have other decks in my collection that do that. Here's the guidebook. So the guidebook has, I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but it does have a couple of pages per card. So you have the reproduction, you have some keywords, a little bit of the phrase, and then you have a few paragraphs on each card. So there is a little bit in here. This artwork is not typically my style, personally. But I am very intrigued by it because it has a far more masculine feel to me, and when I'm doing shadow work, both with myself and with others, I work with a variety of different guides, including, I'm always one of my dogs, including a bunch of beings of divine darkness, including goetic infernals, and so this feels, it feels like a demon deck, right? So, alright, so anyway, so the cardstock is lovely. Here's the backing. I feel very neutral about this backing because, as I've just already said, like, the aesthetic of this deck is not my personal favorite, but I do think from what I have seen online that the images go really well with the keywords, especially in combination with shadow work. So like this says amalgamate. Everything is starting to amalgamate. All the aspects are beginning to fit together. Trust that you are being guided to the right path. Ignore the inner critic and don't give up. This one is stuck. What or who is keeping you stuck? Living authentically is what gives life meaning. Be aware of your value. Remember to lean into what is important and to live honestly and fully. So when we're doing shadow work and we're going into the shadow in meditation, I like these keywords a lot. Guarded, defeat. And we're going into our shadow in meditation, it is to uncover memories that are blocking things like that. So what memories are keeping us stuck? What past life or current life memories or conditioning is keeping you stuck and keeping you from living your most authentic life, right? So I really like, I think I showed you guys these couple cards already. I really like the keywords and the phrases on this deck to point towards those things. This says deficiency. As you reflect on the past, remember that everyone has experienced highs and lows. Comparison may only add to feelings of deficiency. Let go and move on. This is a good example of a card where I think that the keyword can bring you in a lot of different directions. The artwork matches perfectly for me, and then you have that key phrase as well. So when you're going to use this deck, I think that it will allow you to pull off your intuition in numerous ways, which is nice. Awakening, power. We all carry, not all, a lot of us carry power wounds, nonconformist. So immediately, and this is the feeling I was getting when I saw images of this online as well, is like immediately what is jumping to me is how these can be really great shadow prompts before or after a meditation if you're doing with yourself, or how I think I'm probably going to be using this with clients a lot while I'm guiding them in their meditation, actually. Elevate. If something feels off or looks too good to be true, trust your gut. Reach out to those you enjoy spending time with to elevate your energy. So I use card work, specific decks. I should say use specific decks in shadow work for various reasons. I like a deck like just a couple of them that I have like sitting right here. Magical Botanical is on my list in the video that I will link below. My list of decks for connecting with divine darkness. This is on there, and this is one, for example, where the guidebook really gives you like a few pages. There's some meat in there. There's a lot to jump off of in journaling and in meditation. And then you have decks like the Fallen Angels Oracle, which I don't have sitting right here, which is very straight to the point keywords that can be really, really helpful. This feels like a really good combination of both. And I also really like how, for example, some of these keywords like cultivate or introspection, especially in combination with the artwork, could really go numerous ways depending on how you're using the deck, what your intuition is telling you, what other cards are coming up in the spread, things like that. And I don't know if I showed you guys this. Look at the gilding on the side of this. That's nice. That's cool. So this is, I think that this is probably going to be a really versatile shadow deck, but I really don't know yet. And if this is a deck you guys would like me to review, I certainly can once I've worked with it for a while. Yeah, but I purchased it very specifically for shadow work and for connecting with beings of the darkness. So when I say that, I think it's important to remember that when you're doing shadow work, or you're working with guides, or you're working with deity, or you're doing any of that type of work, it really is up to you whether you perceive these beings as actual, literal, external beings that you're interacting with, or archetypes or pieces of your own psyche. That's up to you. But the beings of divine darkness are not just evil. That is why I personally call them beings of divine darkness, because both the dark and the light can be equally divine and equally wounded. And the beings and archetypes and deities that are associated with either darkness or light embody that divinity as well as that wounding. Or they can embody the wound, or they can mirror the wounding, or they are experts on that wounding. So like anger, for example. Anger can show up in a very divine, healthy, integrated way that makes change, that helps you know where your needs aren't being met or somebody else's needs aren't being met. Anger in an unhealthy form, in a wounded form, can also be very destructive, right? And in a wounded light capacity, it's not there. So anger, a healthy integrated anger, is really important to be able to access. But it can be wounded in a dark capacity, and it can be wounded in a light capacity. And so when I'm doing shadow work with myself or with others, when I am working with their guides or my guides, I'm working with beings of divine darkness or light, depending on the wounding that is being mirrored back, the wounding that we're going to be working on. And so this deck feels very much like a Goetic Infernal demon type of deck, right? So it's probably going to end up on that list for me. Blinded. So here, just, I look at Blinded and I think, what aren't we seeing? So if we're going to go into a meditation and we're excavating a memory, what didn't we see here? These feel like shadow work meditation prompts to me. Blocked, impaled, preservation. Anyway, I won't show you all of these imagery, but you guys get it here. Rise up, flight. So there is really, it's a very balanced deck. Keyword and message-wise, it feels like a very balanced deck. Of course, the artwork is a little bit darker, a lot dark. It's a dark, artwork-wise, it is a dark deck. And it has a masculine feel to me. So for me, this feels very much like a Goetic Infernal type of a deck. But when I'm choosing a deck for shadow work, like I said, I will either pull something like this that has a guidebook, a thicker guidebook where I can really journal and I can really think and I can meditate and I can do all this stuff. Or I might want to pull something like a clarifier that can really just point me at things and really just get me a super clear answer. However, I also am one that I'm going to pull light decks into my shadow work as well, and not just in a support capacity. So just for example, I think I have sitting, right here, I have my Divine Feminine Oracle, which I really should do a review about because it's like one of my favorite decks. This is obviously a light deck, right? It's about, I think it even says on the back, like it's about embodying love. It's a light deck. Now, there are beings of divine darkness in here. So there's like Kali's in here, Isis is in here, beings that we would consider to be darker, right? But dark and light are not synonyms for good and bad, okay? It's really important to understand. So I might pull a deck like this in, yes, for support, for like an affirmation. So like Queen Esther, my ego is in service to my soul and I trust my soul's divine timing. I can bring this in as a affirmation, as a support message, that type of thing. But I will also bring these decks into my shadow work for wounding. So if we're looking at a light capacity, what wounding do I need to look at? And I pull the ego, my ego is in service of my soul and I trust my soul's divine timing. In a wounded capacity, the ego can show up as egotistical and running the show and things like that. But having an underdeveloped ego, and if you follow me on Instagram, I did a reel on this, having an underdeveloped ego is just as problematic for our psyche as having an overly developed ego. And an underdeveloped ego is going to lead to all kinds of self-worth issues. So this card does, of course, create support, but it also can point us towards wounding. Where is my ego wounded? Is my ego trying to drive the show, or is it not developed enough? Am I not trusting things enough? So anyway, so I will pull in a variety of different decks for a variety of different things, and I do think that this deck, the Shadow of Darkness, really has a very specific place within a shadow work collection, which, not, again, I want to be very clear, you do not need to have a collection of decks specifically for shadow work. You don't have to have any specific deck to do shadow work. You don't have to have a deck at all to do shadow work. As somebody who does not just my own shadow work, but facilitates shadow work for others, I do have a variety of decks that I pull in to assist in that work. So, anyway, this has turned into a random chat about quite a few things, but my first impressions of the Shadow of Darkness Oracle cards is that I'm really excited to work with it. I really think that it's going to be a super solid addition to the deck, or to my collection, and I don't think that it's going to be... I don't think it's a deck you can only use for shadow work either. So, like, there are a couple decks in my collection that's really their only purpose is for shadow work. And I don't know where this will fall on that spectrum, but we will see. It's got great... Guys, I'm sorry. Again, look at this gilding. It's like hologram. It's like black and holographic. It's perfect choice for this deck. So, if there's anything that I just rambled about that you would like to hear me talk about more, let me know in the comments. Otherwise, I will see you in the next video. Bye.